He who sees too much ends up finding his place nowhere. Nietzsche wrote this. And if you've ever felt that phrase like a punch in the gut, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The more you see, the less you belong. The more your consciousness expands, the harder it becomes to blend into the crowd. It's not that you're better than others, you simply see things they don't see. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. This video isn't going to console you with comforting lies. I'm not going to tell you everything's okay or that you'll find your place. I'm going to show you something more valuable. Why not fitting in is the first step to creating something truly your own. Let's delve into the philosophies of Nietzsche, Jung, and Schopenhauer, thinkers who profoundly understood the price of lucidity. And let's discover how to transform this painful isolation into absolute power. Because perhaps you don't fit in for a very simple reason. You aren't made to fit into pre-made molds.
The crowd lives in a trance. You awoke from it. Schopenhauer described most people's lives as a pendulum swinging between suffering and boredom. They work jobs they hate to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. And they never, ever stop to ask, why am I doing this? You asked that question. And when you truly ask that question, not superficially, but with your whole soul, something irreversible happens. You awaken. Awakening means seeing the invisible structure that keeps everyone imprisoned, seeing the chains that others call freedom, seeing the script that everyone follows without question. And here's the problem. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are instead of who society wants you to be. But he warned, the process of individuation always leads to isolation because you differentiate yourself from the masses. Practical application. You feel it at family gatherings, listening to empty conversations about trivialities. You feel it at social events, watching status games being played. You feel it when friends pursue goals that you recognize as empty. It's not arrogance, it's simply incompatibility. You're operating on a different frequency. Accept that awakening has a cost. Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the seer's solitude, he was diagnosing it. You can't go back to sleep, so stop trying. Start building a life compatible with your lucidity. Choose conscious connections over quantity of friends. Value deep conversations over superficial interactions. Accept that you will have fewer people around you, but those who remain will be real.
The language of the crowd is no longer your language. Nietzsche wrote, "My time has not yet come. Some men are born posthumously." He spent years creating works that no one understood. His books didn't sell. His contemporaries considered him mad. He saw a century ahead and paid the price of devastating loneliness. When you develop intellectually, you develop a complex internal vocabulary. Your thoughts operate in layers. You see nuances where others see black and white. You feel depths where others feel surfaces. And then, when he tries to communicate, he discovers there is no bridge. Practical application. You try to explain concepts like Jung's shadow or Nietzsche's eternal return, and you see people's eyes glaze over. You talk about why you stopped following conventional social expectations, and you realize people look at you with pity or suspicion. It's not that you're being pretentious, you're literally speaking a different language. Stop trying to translate. You can't force understanding where there's no capacity for it. Find the rare individuals who speak your language. They exist, but they are scarce, and accept that most of your interactions will be superficial. Reserve your depth for those who can sustain it.
You see the theater, and you cannot pretend you don't see it. Jung developed the concept of persona, the social mask we use to adapt to the world. We all have one. The problem is, most people believe the mask is real. You can't believe it anymore. You see the masks people wear. You see when someone is performing success instead of living it. You see when conversations are empty rituals, devoid of politeness. You see when people say, "How are you?" without really wanting to know. Once you perceive the artificiality of social interactions, you can no longer participate in them genuinely. It's like watching a movie knowing all the camera tricks. The immersion is destroyed. Practical application. You are at social events observing the status games. You see colleagues competing for validation in hierarchies that you recognize as arbitrary. You see people building entire identities around brands and titles that you know are empty. And you can't share these observations without being seen as cynical or a difficult person. Nietzsche spoke of amor fati, love of fate. You didn't choose to see the theater, but since you do, accept it completely. Use this knowledge as power. You can navigate the social game masterfully, precisely because you understand its invisible rules. You play consciously, not unconsciously. This gives you an advantage.
Loneliness is not the problem. The lack of purpose in it is. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can only be himself while he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he does not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is truly free." If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. The problem isn't being alone. The problem is being alone without knowing why. It's loneliness without direction. It's isolation that feels like punishment, not a choice. When you transform your solitude into fertile ground for creation, study, and self-transformation, it ceases to be a curse and becomes a sanctuary. Practical application. The difference between spending Sunday alone scrolling through social media feeling miserable versus spending Sunday alone reading, creating, training, building. Same loneliness, radically different experiences. Transform your solitude into a project. Use this time to build something that reflects your unique vision. Write, create, study deeply. Become formidable in your solitude, not miserable in it. Nietzsche created his best works in absolute solitude. His work was only understood decades after his death, but it changed the world. So far, we've diagnosed the problem. Why you don't fit in. What has changed in you. Why the crowd now seems so distant. Now we enter deeper territory. Because not fitting in isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a completely different one. One that most will never have the courage to take. In the following laws, we will explore how to transform involuntary exclusion into deliberate power. How to use your outsider position as a strategic advantage. And how, paradoxically, to find real connections, but only after fully accepting that you don't belong anywhere. Use your observer position as a strategic weapon. When you're not part of the game, you can see the whole picture. While the players are immersed in the rules, competing blindly, you're above, observing the patterns. Sun Tzu wrote, Know the enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in danger. But there is a third kind of knowledge. Know the game itself. Its exclusion gives you eyes to see what is hidden in plain sight. Practical application. In corporate environments, outsiders often see political dynamics more clearly than insiders. In relationships, those who maintain emotional distance are better at reading intentions. Your lack of emotional attachment gives you an advantage. Use your position consciously. In negotiations, your detachment gives you power. In conflicts, your ability to see both sides makes you strategically superior. Don't lament being left out, use it. Turn it to your advantage. The crowd fights over crumbs because they don't see the bigger picture. You do. Build your own tribe, but accept that it will be small. The question isn't, how do I fit back in? The question is, where are the others who also don't fit in? Jung spoke of those who go through the solitary process of individuation, eventually recognizing one another, not by their surface appearance, but by their shared depth. Your tribe will not be found in ordinary places. It will not be numerous. It will not be obvious. Practical application. Your tribe might be spread across the globe. An author whose book changed your life, a thinker on a podcast, a stranger on a forum who understands exactly what you mean. These connections will be deeper than most normal friendships because they're based on values and vision, not convenience. Stop trying to build quantity of connections. Obsessively pursue quality. Be selective. When you find someone who speaks your language, invest deeply. And use technology. The internet, for the first time in history, allows the rare ones to find each other.
Transform your difference into action. Nietzsche not only accepted his solitude, he transformed it into Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Jung not only lived his individuation, he mapped the collective unconscious. Schopenhauer transformed his misanthropy into the world as will and representation. The greatest transformation is turning your exclusion into a work of art, into philosophy, into something that leaves a mark. If you don't fit in with the crowd, maybe it's because you weren't made to be an audience member. You were made to be an author. Practical application. Every person who changed the world started as an outsider. They didn't fit in because they saw what didn't yet exist, and then they created it. You have something inside you that can only emerge because you are outside. A unique perspective, a vision that the crowd doesn't have. Start creating, write, film, paint, build, teach. Document your journey as an outsider, your struggle for belonging, and your eventual acceptance of not belonging. This will become your work, and this work will find other outsiders who need it. Nietzsche said, "You have your way. I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it doesn't exist." Your exclusion is your path. Carve it into something eternal.
Conclusion. The paradox resolved. He who sees too much ends up finding his place nowhere. Nietzsche wasn't wrong, but there's a second part. When you can't find your place anywhere, you're forced to create your own. And this place, consciously and intentionally built from your unique vision, will be more authentic than any prefabricated place where you could never fit in. You don't fit in with the crowd because you weren't made to fit into molds. You were made to break them. The seer's loneliness is real,
The pain of exclusion is real, but so too is the power that comes from seeing beyond, the power to create beyond, the power to live beyond. Schopenhauer said, "A happy man is one who lives without pain, not one who lives without discomfort." You chose the discomfort of lucidity over the comfort of illusion, and that choice puts you on a different path, more difficult, more lonely, but infinitely more truthful. This video is for you if you don't fit in, not to make you feel better about it, but to help you understand that not fitting in isn't a weakness, it's a necessary condition for anyone who intends to create something real. Use your isolation, transform your solitude, build something that only you can build. Because, in the end, perhaps the greatest sense of belonging isn't about finding a group that accepts you, whether it's about accepting yourself completely, outsider and all.